Okay, everyone, today I'm going to discuss how I passed the AWS Solutions Architect Associate exam in just 8 weeks. Why are organizations moving to the cloud? There's really two reasons. One, the barrier of entry is very low. No need to purchase hardware or anything like that. You don't need to hire a professional to come in and set up your servers or configure your network. None of that. You just create an account in AWS or Azure and you just figure out the dashboard, click new instance, and you're done. That's really it. The second piece is you're able to predict the cost. Yes, I know you can buy physical hardware in like 15, 20K or $10,000 or $5,000 or even $1,000, and you could, that's it, right? But not really. There's a power consumption, cooling, and then maintenance, and then you got to hire somebody to maintain the server or instances or whatever it is you build on-prem. Here you don't need to do that. In the cloud, they have their own built-in redundancies. You're leveraging big corporations such as Microsoft and AWS and now Google are able to like maintain those servers for you. All you have to do is just maintain the operating system and the application that you install on top of the OS. In some cases, you could just maintain scripts inside of inside AWS and Azure, like such as Lambda, right? So you could just really easily cut costs, and you can actually see how much your application is consuming. So it actually encourages you to develop better code for your application to save you money. And the opposite side, you would just buy a bunch of hardware and just there's no actual like view to reduce it. There's no incentive to reduce and improve the efficiency of your code because you already purchased the hardware. It's there. In the cloud, there's actual reason, motivation to reduce and improve your efficiency of your code because you can see those costs actually go down as you modify and improve it. So those are the real two reasons why folks are now going to the cloud versus just buying hardware on-prem. So for every certification I'm working towards, I always look for three essential tools. And I got this from Network Chuck and from other resources as well, just because the way that I learn, I need to see it, I need to do the thing, and I always get insecure whether or not I'm actually memorizing versus knowing. So I kind of built a framework, and part of the framework is identifying the sources of learning. So I've tried the reading first and test first. Never really liked that. What works for me is the first video source. And for the AWS Solutions Architect Associate exam, I went for a cloud guru. They're like obviously cloud gurus, right? But from like reading through forums and Twitter and different places like that and other YouTube channels, they've always mentioned a cloud guru. It's been pretty consistent. And I figured, okay, well, they are the number one source and that a lot of people are going for, and their target is cloud. So why not? The second really piece of that is I tried Pluralsight, and it was great for the Linux Plus exam, but every other content within Pluralsight, it just didn't feel good. It felt plain. It felt like a data dump of information, wasn't really articulating the topics really well. The trainers, I don't know, the trainers are great. I don't know if it's the platform. It really feels like it's the platform more than anything else. A Cloud Guru does in sections. So you can do like a 5-minute clip of a topic, and then inside that library, there's like a 2 hours, right, of content. And then you have inside of that, you have a breakdown of a topic. And from that, it's really easy to take notes. It's not like a 2-hour video or a 30-minute video. It's really just a collective of 5 and 10-minute videos that you can really drill down to. Now that gives me a foundational knowledge. If like a very brief overhead knowledge as to what the test really consists of. Gives you visuals, and it kind of gives you like a bunch of slides, but it really just some of the more difficult topics in this exam, particularly the I guess instructors would break it down a little bit easier with like illustrations or like a graphic, like just a moving graphic, and that really helped me on understanding on some of that space. But really I used the video for a real just like, let's see what this test is about. And so the next source of information that I go for, an assessment test. right? And I try to get bang for my buck. So either whatever gets me a thing to tell me where I am in per domain, not on the test, per domain. So now that I got a video source and I ran through the video source, the next step is to see where I am just on that big overview of the video, because that's really what it is. They go a little deep, but not as deep as you would on like a study guide or a book from the resources, depending from the publisher directly. But in this case, I didn't get the study guide right away. I actually jumped right into the practice exams, and I get them from Measure Up. Great platform. I can't say it enough. I use them for my CCNA, my CCNP, my Linux Plus, and then now my Solutions Architect Associate exam. So, and what that does, and so the study guide for the all-in-one didn't give me an assessment. So I used the Measure Up's I just took a real test or simulated test for the Solutions Architect Associate exam after I did the A Cloud Guru, all the videos. I don't know how many hours it is, but I just did all those videos. Then I jumped into the exam. And then in that exam, it gives you a breakdown per domain. So for me, I'm aiming for, just on one shot of the video, I'm aiming for 50%. If I'm above 50%, that means I know half the knowledge already instilled in my memory. It's just read it once and then I take it, I'm above 50%. So I'm aiming for 50%. If I score underneath that, I typically need to go back and take better notes on my video or just pay better attention. See what I'm missing there. But in that 50%, if you score underneath it, look for, and this is how I go no matter what to go to each level. I go for the lowest domain and then go very aggressive in studying towards that topic. I mean, I will, and the way I do that is not go back to videos and just stare at the PowerPoint slides that they go or to go over the same topics, because likely you're missing something. If something didn't get retained, either you halfway through the videos didn't pay attention, which I would take there is go to the videos and take more diligent notes. And sometimes I literally just copy what the PowerPoint slide says just to keep my mind engaged on the topic. And it's not really for note per se taking. I'm not going back to some of this stuff all the time. But what I am, because I would rather just go back to the video, right? But what I'm trying to do is trying to get that connection between what I'm seeing and what I'm writing down, right? So, or typing down in this case. I've done writing in pen. It really, I don't see any benefit. If I am at under 50%, I use a study guide. I like the all-in-ones from Amazon. You should type in all-in-one, and they're not printed by Amazon, but you could just buy them on Amazon, and I get them on a Kindle. And I could just either read them from my phone, or what I actually do is the Kindle web app with my notes, and I cover the topic, right? But really what I'm looking here is for deeper information. So when I'm taking the Measure Up or practice test, what I try to do is I don't try to find the answer to that wrong topic, or I got an answer wrong and I'm trying to figure out how to get it correct next time. I'm actually trying to study the things that I got wrong as a solution. So if I thought VPC was the answer when it clearly has nothing to do with VPC, it has to do with databases, the question has to do with databases, and I select VPC, it's because I don't know what VPC is. So what I do is I go and look at the study guide, look up what VPC is, and then different scenarios as to what VPC is used for, right? And if you do that enough, you look at that question again, and of course you're going to know the answer because you took it 15 times, but you actually know what every other alternative to that question was, and you can just remove those. And well, it has to be that because I know what VPC is, what that does there, I know what this does there. I know what a WAF does. I know what all that is, and I know what they talk about. And that's all networking. It has nothing to do with databases. So that's really what I'm doing with those three tools. And in the exam day, and I'll know what all the topics are. I just won't know the static answer to a random networking question. I will know every other alternative relating to it. And it doesn't, and this associate exam isn't a professional exam. So if you just generally know what a WAF does, you most likely just get the answer right just because you know what a WAF does and it has nothing to do with databases. So, yeah, that's how I kind of flow through that. Now, the fourth one, which I just incorporated as I'm kind of taking more, right now I'm studying another exam, and I think this will really help me on the AWS side, is flashcards. I did a little bit of it and I practiced it as a alternative tool to, like, I think it was, I was really struggling with databases in the solutions architect exam. So I was like, I need some repetition on some stuff, just a memorization on things like acronyms or terms. And I had some struggle with like NoSQL and things like that. So I did use Quizlet, and I've used it in the past. Didn't really like the first iteration like 5-6 years ago. I tried it out again and I actually really like it now. I have an account. I'm using it really heavily in this exam I'm preparing for now. But I think it really cut my time even shorter if I would have done this like right away, which is just on topics that I'm struggling with that take me a while to jump from 65% to 75% on the practice test on measure up. If you're hitting consistently 70% on the practice test, you need to schedule your exam now. Meaning, if you're scoring 85, it's likely memorization, and you're not gonna know anymore. You don't know where you're at this point. You've taken the practice test often enough, and if you're really confident on all the topics and all the alternatives, and then even if memorization, they give you like 300-400 questions on the practice exam, you will have to be really good at memorizing all those questions to get them all right at an 80% consistency. So at that point, you just need to schedule your exam and see where you're at, see if you can just pass it. Because I think the passing score is 70% or 700. And so even if you hit a 72, you pass, you're golden. So you don't need an A, you don't need an ace the exam. You just need to pass it. So that's what I did. So but that's the difficult part. Getting the 65 and past the 70 on an exam, like a simulated exam of measure up, is actually really difficult to do. And if you're to get to that level, I think the secret sauce is Quizlet. So you do that whole process of do the individual domain quizzes until you starting to get that 60 percentile, 65. Then you do a full simulated, or I guess not simulated, just full exam but non-timed. And you just start knocking it out once a week until you kind of surpass that. Go back to your notes, and I use Evernote for my notes. Go back to your notes and your study guide, dive deeper, maybe do another video to kind of review that topic. And then once you're kind of like at that 65 level, start creating your quiz, like flashcards, right, in Quizlet, and just start knocking them out on the topics that are domains that you kind of like are hitting at. If you're at a 65%, then you're probably hitting some of the quizzes, some of the domains at 50, 55 percentile. Do all the topics in that domain that you see on the practice test, which my situation was measure up, or in the study guide that you're like, I really struggle with this, I don't want a question to show up in the exam for that. Take flashcards on it, just run it for a week. Guarantee you, you're gonna pass that domain the next time you take that simulated or full exam. So that's pretty much my framework on how I just pass these exams. I really struggled with this. It took me, I'm embarrassed to say it, but it took me 3 years to pass my CCNA. Majority of it is mental. It's just like a competition. It's like competing. You have to go in there with a positive mind. If you've trained to your fullest capacity, you're going to go in there and be extremely confident. And for me, my regimen was you wake up about an hour and a half before you might start work, and I will study, right? I try to time myself. I try to focus, put my phone on do not disturb and all of that. And then during lunch, and I try to knock it out in an hour, right? So while I'm eating, I'm watching like A Cloud Guru, for example, or I have a Kindle, but because I do like my reading note. I don't just read. For content like this, for an actual, like, I want to retain 80-90% of what I'm reading. What I've learned is that I read and I come and take notes. I read, come and take notes, and continuously as I'm reading, I take notes, and it takes a little bit longer, but I find the hour that I'm doing that, I retain majority of the information. At least I can just, if not 100% memorize it, it's like an archive. I'm like, oh, I think I remember like reading something like that. It has to do with this, and you should just go for it, right? You just, okay, I think it's that, you take it. And then at the end of the day, I go home. In my situation, I work from home. I am really blessed to have that opportunity or option. But for me, I just go and rest for about an hour, just depending, walk the dogs, depending. And then I'll come back, eat, and then I will hit reading again, and I'll do that for another 2 hours. So every day I study for about 3 to 4 hours a day. And I did that for about 2 to 3 months, right? And then I took the exam. I actually didn't think I was going to pass it right away, because it was actually a new version of the exam, and I was the study material for the new version wasn't out yet, and I just like, oh, well, the hell with it, I'm gonna just do it. So I did it, and I passed the first time. So it was really great. I think this framework is exactly what I'm using for this new exam, which I'll announce later on. But I don't want to jinx it. I'm taking it in a few weeks. But this exact framework I use for my Linux Plus, and I just knocked that out of the park. It was just super great. That experience was great. I actually took longer to take that exam because I was more insecure in my framework. Now what I did exactly the same way, just enhanced it a little bit better using different tools. I did use Measure Up, the same Linux Plus, Solutions Architect. Both were Measure Up. I used different note-taking apps. I use Quizlet for Solutions Architect and Evernote. I didn't use that for Linux Plus. I used OneNote for Linux Plus. I'm moving away from OneNote. It's just terrible. Like, compared to Evernote, it's way better, Evernote. And then I use Pluralsight for Linux Plus. Cloud Guru I use for Solutions Architect. Like I mentioned earlier, Pluralsight, just like the content for Linux Plus is great. I actually had a lot of hands-on, which is exactly what I was looking for. I didn't just want to pass the cert. I really want to do a lot of hands-on. But if I would do it all over again, I would highly recommend Cloud Guru, just because of the educators there. The trainers, they're just awesome. The way they explain stuff. They're also kind of like hella dorky. It's pretty funny. They have some jokes. But the Pluralsight, it's like very, like, I think there's just really smart guys in Pluralsight, the trainers there. But it's just very bland. Very, the Linux stuff was great. Anything outside from that, what I'm talking about is Azure, AWS, even the CISSP, I think Security Plus. I think that was all the other topics. I think that was all the topics I did there, and it was just like very bland and dry. I just had to stop using them. I think Cloud Guru content is amazing, and also the platform's great. You can like trace your percentage and how often you do the things and like where you're at with them. So it's great. So that kind of wraps it up for Solutions Architect Associate exam. For me, it was like it doesn't really change my like available work. I took it just because at my job we heavily use AWS, and I wanted to be able to really understand from a big picture. So what is capable with AWS and how we can improve from a architecture and a security perspective, and really understand like all the features or the tools within AWS, because there's a whole lot of them and they've been adding them continuously. It's very interesting the way they deal with like security, the way they deal with like networking. I do think that this certification will open doors for an individual trying to dive into cloud. If you're into cloud and you want to take a cloud role or whatever, or a role that relates to the cloud and want to upscale so that way you can fill in a knowledge gap, this exam is great. It really did make me feel when I got out of the exam that I was well versed in AWS. And actually, Cloud Guru does have labs that you built, and I built all of them within the requirements there for the video training. And the hands-on experience there was awesome. Built my own environment, built up instances and VNets and all that, and it was great. It's really beneficial, this exam, although it wasn't hands-on in the test. The requirement really, like, I don't see myself passing without doing hands-on. So and while you're taking this, is really going to be hard to, like, it's really difficult to avoid the hands-on piece. If you're really avoiding the hands-on, you probably shouldn't even take this exam, just because it is a hands-on related certificate. It isn't a high level. It isn't anything like that. You are building, you are developing, or like configuring, I guess I would say, the environment in AWS. But in the I think it's 100-question exam from what I remember. It's a really long exam, and what I recommend is really it's networking. The databases are topics that you do not want to walk in there and be weak on. So make sure that you do deep dives within the study guide. Don't go beyond the study guide. Just go deep dive into the study guide, and you should be fine. If you need anything, any advice, my email is going to be down below. Also, my website is going to be down below. So reach out to me whenever. I'm glad to help you out. I guess email me, and then I'll get back to you guys. Okay, man. Peace.